Greetings and welcome to the senior grand finals of Crossfire, the annual schools debate of Shriram College of Commerce. I am Aim Joshi, the General Secretary of the Debating Society. The senior grand finals of the event are being conducted in collaboration with the Association for Democratic Reforms. The motion for the senior grand finals of Crossfire is this House will bring political parties under the Right to Information Act. Mahika, over to you to announce this.
All right. Without further ado, I'd like to first of all call the first participant, Sayona Arora.
So I'd be starting in 3, 2, 1. The most prominent social evils targeting every political stature include corruption, lack of accountability, transparency, public centric policies, and the list goes on. To which a simple resolve is right to information. RTI opens up government records to public scrutiny, thereby providing us citizens a vital tool in order to understand how the government actually operates, which is why bringing political parties under the ambit of RTI works out in our favor. Good morning, everyone. I, Siona, stand before all of you in order to present my stance for the motion this House will bring political parties under the ambit of RTI. Let's understand why bringing them under the ambit of RTI is vital. According to a recent study made by Transparency International, a Berlin-based NGO, India is the most corrupt country in Asia Pacific region, and a fair share of receiving this title goes to our very own political parties for conducting the massive scams that they have in our recent past, whether it was pertaining to the Commonwealth scam, the 2G spectrum scam, etc. RTI helps one gain clarity on matters regarding electoral bonds and political funding, alongside disbarring the ambiguity of expenditure made by political parties, thereby helping reduce corruption. Let's not negate how it will also help bring in the much needed transparency and accountability that are the key premises on which we citizens make informed choices. Reiterating what Supreme Court stated during the upholding of the Delhi High Court judgment of bringing the Office of Chief Justice under the purview of RTI. Transparency doesn't undermine judicial independency. Instead, provides the independent India reassurance. Now opening the case on side opposition. 2.2 lakh cases are pending as RTI managed to achieve its 15th anniversary on October 12th, 2020. Let's quickly break down how RTI, which seems as a useful tool, may not always serve the best interest, in bringing political parties under the ambit of RTI is not quite feasible. Reiterating what side opposition proposition mentioned pertaining to the Supreme Court remarks, the Supreme Court during the judgment of the Delhi High Court had also added that confidentiality and privacy needs to be maintained under RTI, and therefore RTI has to be amended. And RTI cannot and should not be used as a tool for surveillance. Keeping aside privacy, we also need to take into consideration why political parties did not comply with the judgment made on 3rd June 2013. That is the landmark judgment made by the bench of CIC, stating that political parties need to be brought under the ambit of RTI. Political parties have apprehension that disclosure of information would give an upper hand to their competitors, which in its very essence is right, as it complies against the very essence of fair competition. They also refrain from disclosing the internal working as well as decision-making schemes for the same reasons. The side opposition firmly believes that before bringing the political parties under the ambit of RTI, we need to cater to the flaws and the shortcomings of RTI. As Ranjan Gogoi rightly stated, nobody wants a system of opaqueness. However, the political stature cannot be destroyed in the name of transparency, which is why we need to amend the RTI first before furthering this change. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank Sayona for that speech. I would like to introduce the second contestant. We have Mehar Mehandru going ahead now.
I'm ready in 3, 2, 1. Sweden, Germany, Japan, Austria. In all these countries, political parties come under the ambit of RTI. Do I need to tell you that Sweden ranks number 6 country in the world with the happiest people? And Germany, Japan, Austria are highly developed nations with excellent economies that is an envy of every country in the world. India, being world's largest democracy, needs to stand up for its true spirit, which includes transparency, equality, and dominance of the will of citizens. Political parties not being under the ambit of RTI violates all 3 of these basic tenets of democracy. At the heart of the debate is the question whether the political parties qualify as public authority under the RTI Act. And according to the definition of public authority, they most certainly do. Political parties enjoy indirect financing in the form of tax exemptions, allotment of huge plots, buildings in prime locations for free or at concessional rates, and get free airtime on state owned channels. Funding of political parties is another contentious issue. Political parties fear that by disclosing sources of income, the identity of the donors will lead to harassment by political opponents. This argument must also be placed in the context of a detrimental nexus between political parties and business houses, which has adequately been exposed in scams such as 2G and coal scams. The citizen's right to know takes precedence over the harassment argument. Keeping political parties outside of the ambit of RTI provides unsaid amnesty to political class, creates trust deficit in system, which in turn breeds corruption and nepotism. This leads to unequal laws for equal citizens. On the other hand, politics of vendetta, hatred, and revenge is likely to take over and will damage India if political parties come under the ambit of RTI. Discretionary powers of a political party and decisions taken in good faith and in interest of the nation based upon confidential information may be compromised. RTI may be used as a tool to delay vital decisions of the government and halt India's growth. We have seen this kind of trickery happen way too often in the past. The information of most of people interest in will be about funding that political parties receive. This information should be put on the party's websites. Another reason is that the information required is already on the website of the Election Commission, so there is actually no need to include them in the ambit of the RTI. Political parties vehemently oppose RTI Act as it would restrict the functioning of the parties. Political leaders at important positions will always have their decisions impacted by their perception of political fallout and how oppositions may use it rather than working for the national interest. Our nation's security could seriously be compromised if political parties come under the ambit of RTI. Decision making at highest levels of the government may expose top leadership to mental mapping and hence leave us vulnerable to external as well as internal forces. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Meher for that speech. Now we have Devansh up next.
I begin my speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The problem with political jokes is that they often get elected. Right to information, albeit, isn't a fundamental right, but when democracy claims to be of, by, and for the people, how can the right of people to know be any less important than other fundamental rights? The love affair between political parties and RTI began back in 2010, when the Association for Democratic Reforms filed an RTI seeking the information of fund collection received by major national parties in 2010. In response, unsurprisingly so, they denied on the ground that political parties do not fall under the scope of RTI Act 2005. The matter then reached before the Central Information Commission, and was held that all political parties are public authorities under Section 2H of the RTI Act 2005. They denied to follow the decision as well and introduced the RTI Amendment Bill in 2013. Proper Tom and Jerry stuff this. The matter is still pending in the Supreme Court for 8 years post this. The idiocracy of the system is so profound that to protect the political parties, the judiciary is denying justice to the real owners of the democracy, the people. Given that limits on corporate funding do not exist anymore, thousands of crores of funding from unknown sources, black or maybe not, fly into the accounts of these parties. Both the insurmountable illegal funding from foreign powers and the expenditure of it during elections are a major subject of national interest. And hence, the political parties must comply in order to do justice to this democratic outcry. As much as I find this to be the Sholay coin with only one side, I'd still like to be the devil's advocate for a bit and go against the motion. Section 2H of RTI Act defines public authority as the one which is created by the Constitution or by the Parliament. Political parties, however, are formed under the Act of Parliament, which is not the same thing as being created by the Parliament. Yet why are we so adamant about counting political parties as public authorities, even when they provided no government funding? With regards to finances, political parties are obliged to provide information to the Election Commission and the income tax authorities. One of the major reasons as to why political parties don't want to be transparent It's because they have apprehensions that disclosure of information under RTI Act may give advantage to their competitors. Here, the ever-hot topic of political vendetta arises. Who guarantees that no candidate will suffer a false corruption accusation through political vendetta? We must understand that in real life, a mess does not get unmessed in a single step. And that noble ideas like the inclusion of political parties under the RTI Act should be made with the ultimate consciousness of national welfare and public interest. The little kid inside me is saying RTI is a boon. Let's maximize it and use it to kill all the goons. With that, I rest my argument. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Devansh for that speech. Next up, we have Janvi Desai.
Starting now. Aruna Roy, an RTI activist, once said, "Satta to काफी बदल जाएगी, लेकिन व्यवस्था नहीं बदलेगी." Democracy. What is it that makes India a democracy? Is this the act of expression, speech, or the act of protest? IRL, information is what leads to protest, expression, or speech. Let's imagine the current RTI Act as a game of tug of war. The one side being the political parties and the other being the citizens. Let the rope be the media and the Information Commission. Strength here pulls the rope. Sus, if I must, money and muscle power. And before you know, the media and the commission are already gone. Talk about how the RTI is followed now. So effectively, right? An entire PM cares fund vanished without any account of utility. Talk about the system being so rigged that the person is deprived of knowing the educational qualifications of the Prime Minister. Defeat. Wow. 8 out of 11 Information Commission posts are left vacant, not to mention the riggedness of the vote already taken. And when asked for the reason why, all you get is a list of votes randomly chosen from the vocabulary of manipulated people subjugated by power in the form of a fact sheet. This is not what NKG meant when he said Swaraj. This is not what the Constitution upholds at its core. A nation is not a demographic landscape to be contrived. It is the people that make it, and the people must be handed for the survival. To flip the side now, think about being a citizen of North Korea, a country occupying the last place on the Freedom and Information Index. No words spoken, no action taken, just quiet silence in accordance to the authorization. India, on the contrary, lies at the position to provide citizens the right to information. Being placed in a controversial territory exploding through wars between the ruling party and the opposition party, the contrary of the motion rather safeguards the misusing of power by the opponents. The RTI, when applied, will let out strategies and funding details leading to unending issues for which the party will keep defending itself and frustrate the free functioning of political parties, curbing the right to freedom. Talk about the already existing Election Commission, an independent body which specially monitors and calls upon the political parties. The interjection of the freedom to RTI and the information with the EC leads to far more unprecedented consequences. Does more prevalence of the IC mean that the institution of EC for this purpose is farce? Straight denial. While the transparency being subject to question, talk about the amount of information that has been misused by the opposition parties to create fake propagandas, leading the people to the dirt of the reality. The people of India, at a crucial point now, needs to question the agenda of the people opposing the RTI Act. Is it really to bring accountability to the government, or to derive the power of position and repeat the same cycle again? Thank you.
So next up, we have Indra Sharma.
I will be starting in 3, 2, 1. This House will bring political parties under the ambit of the Right to Information Act. The Right to Information Act aims to allow citizens to access information under the control of public authorities in order to promote transparency and accountability in the working of every public authority. The Central Information Commission held that political parties are public authorities and are answerable to citizens under the RTI Act. The CIC said 7 national parties are funded indirectly by the central government and have the character of public authorities under the RTI Act as they perform public functions. In August 2013, the government introduced a Right to Information Amendment Bill, which removed the political parties from the scope of the law, and currently no parties are under the RTI Act. Taking an example, Bagepali is a small town north of Bangalore with tarmac roads. Roadwork began in Baghepali in 2005. Markings were done unprofessionally. Dividers were built even before the roads were made, making traffic movement haphazard and causing many accidents and death. Thankfully, Tawfiq, a staffer from an NGO, used RTI to find out the truth behind the roadwork in Baghepali. He found out that nearly 1.32 crore rupees were sanctioned for the road, and despite no work being done, 1.15 crores were shown as spent. Thanks to the RTI, the roadwork is being completed. The RTI Act is a tool for empowering ordinary citizens and changing the culture of governance by making it transparent, less corrupt, participatory, and accountable. It is a true sign of how far India has come past the colonial authoritarian rule of the British. In a country that gives citizens the right to freedom of speech, it is integral for the citizens to have access to accurate information so they may take well-informed stances on political matters and bring about positive changes in our governance. National political parties are the main players as far as elections are concerned. In a democratic system of governance, it is essential that they are held accountable by informed citizens. On the flip side, this House will not bring political parties under the ambit of the Right to Information Act. Members of the House, 60% of the RTI appeals made to information commissioners in Delhi are rejected for a variety of reasons. The bureaucratic requirements of filing are simply too onerous and legalistic for ordinary citizens. This bureaucratic barrier is worse for those without access to higher education or information, and it makes the right to information inaccessible. Beyond the logistical barriers, the law itself excludes political parties. Section 2H of the RTI Act defines public authority as the one which is created or under the Constitution by the Parliament. Political parties are formed under the Act of Parliament, which is not the same thing as being created by the Parliament. With good reason, political parties are wary of complying with the RTI Act, for disclosure of private information may give their competitors an advantage. Members of the House, this is a direct attack on the sanctity of the election process in our country. Sensitive information falling into the wrong hand eliminates all concept of fairness in elections and may lead to foul play in the process. Political rivals will start using RTI with malicious intent. Finally, the RTI Act rests on the grounds that there's no access to information about the internal workings of the parties, which is incorrect. There are already provisions in the Income Tax Act of 1961 and the Representation of People Act 1951, which demand necessary transparency regarding financial aspects of political parties. Information about a political body is already in the public domain on the website of the Election Commission. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Indra for her speech. We have Payal up next.
You can start in 1, 2, 3. To further the two main factors for a triumphant democracy that are transparency and accountability, we must bring political parties under the ambit of the RTI Act. My first point is that we need more transparency due to the ambiguity around the electoral bonds and the anonymous donations made to political parties by non-political entities. Most electoral bonds bought in favor of political parties are in the 10 lakh to 1 crore denomination, and as we know, only 1% of India's elites can afford to donate in those numbers. Thus, the majority of Indian population has no say in the electoral funding of political parties, but those with hegemony over them do. Therefore, we must understand that campaign spending is an investment, one that pays back with interest once the party of your choice is in office. As these donations are brought in by corporations, I believe that every citizen in the country, as a consumer, has the right to know where their money is going and therefore decide if they want to continue funding said corporation or not. Nearly every independent institution, such as the RBI and the ECI, has expressed its reservations against the opacity of electoral bond scheme, but have been able to do little to affect change. Thus, enforcing the RTI over political parties ensures transparency over electoral funding. My second point is that bringing political parties under the RTI ensures civic participation, as people today want to do more than just blindly cast their vote. They want full knowledge about their electoral representatives, policies, and manifestos of the political parties before they vote for them. If political parties start publishing information as a part of their voluntary disclosure requirements of the RTI Act, it will sensitize people and gain their trust and lead to a more informed body politic and strengthen the democratic processes. And lastly, the involvement of the RTI would ensure that every minister from every party is held accountable for the speeches they make, the actions they incite, a check on their criminal records and misconduct, or at least provide the correct educational backgrounds. Now, going against, my first point is the fundamental reason why political parties not want to disclose their internal working as well as the decision-making system is because they are afraid their opponents will take advantage of this disclosure. Secondly, by logic that political parties serve and are answerable to the public, we must also consider other non-state actors such as corporations are also answerable cannot do precedent would logically mean that all individuals and non-state organizations such as NGOs and companies will have to disclose their books of accounts, which can then become a serious breach of their privacy as entities. Thirdly, we seem to completely forget that independent candidates having to disclose all their information also runs the risk of breach of their right to privacy. Also, smaller parties run the risk of being squashed by bigger parties under the false claims of not complying with the RTI laws. Fourthly, we must understand how complex the structure of any political party is. How can the political party be held liable for the actions of volunteers and public helpers that are not officially associated with the party itself? And lastly, since most electoral funding comes from corporations, if they are asked to disclose their books of accounts under the RTI regulations, they will cease to operate with ease in India, thus foreseeing a declining industrial economy. Therefore, in conclusion, we cannot bring political parties under the RTI due to the aforementioned reasons. Thank you.
So I'd like to call upon Yash Moitra to go ahead and give the speech.
I'll be starting now. Every political party has the same basic aim: to govern. In a country like ours, where countless parties exist in the same atmosphere, it is often very difficult to get to know a party without having seen them govern. The aim of a government is to make and implement a change effectively, and parties do this by exerting pressure, and if they're elected, by voting. Hence, one can conclude that any political party is inherently a part of the government. Therefore, if the RTI must apply to the government, it must also apply to political parties. The most relevant example of this is the ruling party being an extension of political offices. For example, the BJP used government airplanes for campaigning in Bengal. And one simply cannot miss the PM CARE scandal, where an RTI application was rejected because the fund belongs to the BJP, not PM. Yet, if today I start a PM college fund, if I today start a PM college fees fund for myself, I will be arrested. Either that, or people will just think he finally decided to become educated. Coming to education, the education of our Prime Minister is also somehow party information and not under the RTI. For this specifically, we have RTI activists such as Saket Gokhale, who bring justice by filing RTI applications. Today, the RTI is under attack by the very government that runs it. Electoral bonds are only the latest in the string of attacks. Now, we have no idea how much money a party has, who is giving them that money, what they are doing with that money. Are they buying goons? Are they buying guns? Are they meddling in other parties? So best of luck trying to reduce the role of money and muscle power in India. Turning the court, I want to lay emphasis on a clash of freedoms. Side proposition wants the freedom to information, whereas side opposition wants the freedom to privacy. The problem with applying the RTI to every party like a blanket is that many of these parties function as private companies. So asking for that financial information is an overreach of power on behalf of the government. Also, Right Honorable Siona and Meher argue that with scams like, they argue with scams like 2G, Commonwealth and coal. These scams were all done courtesy of public officials, such as ministers who are already under RTI. Again, Right Honorable Payal talked about ministers, but they forget that they're already under the RTI because they're already part of the government. This argument is only rhetorical, as RTI did apply to all of them, and that is why we know about scams like 2G and Commonwealth. Moreover, it is not practical for a body like the RTI department to reach into every single one of India's hundreds, if not thousands of political entities and then go punish them, because the RTI department is underfunded so badly, and that is why we should not bring political parties under the ambit of the RTI. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Yash for his speech. I'd like to call upon the next participant. We have Shaunak Malhotra.
I'm ready to begin in 3, 2, 1. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, political parties are essential to the functioning of a democracy. These are the entities that will represent the interests of our diverse population in the parliament and the legislatures. They will play an important role in the lawmaking process and will also constitute the executive. For any democracy to work, the electorate must have access to information on the functioning, not only of the government and legislature, but also at a more fundamental level of the people that are likely to constitute these very pillars of the country. Thus, if the electorate needs information on whether the political party itself is functioning democratically, or about the source of their funding, or even how that money is being spent, the only means to do so is by bringing the parties under the RTI Act. The opposition would argue that with so much information available on the internet, the motion is redundant. I beg to differ. Today, it is not only easy to get lost in the hordes of data floating around on social media, but we are aware that the availability of the same is capable of and actually does get manipulated from time to time. The only way to get a direct answer to a specific question is via the RTI route, which is not only statutory obligation, but also time bound. This is the only way that we can ensure transparency and accountability, which are necessary for a democracy to function. If at all there is a technical opposition raised to the inclusion of political parties, I answer the same by stating that all political parties satisfy all three conditions required to constitute a public authority under the RTI Act. No loopholes, no more lies. Information must prevail. Looking at the opposition point of view, ladies and gentlemen, political parties are essential to the functioning of a democracy. Let me begin by addressing the last argument, which is made by the proposition that the political parties satisfy all three conditionalities required to constitute a public authority. The technical requirement is that either the political party itself must be created by parliament, that it should derive legitimacy from the written word of constitution, or that it should receive direct financial aid from the government. None of these conditions are satisfied in this scenario, as political parties are nowhere mentioned by name in the constitution or the statute. In addition, unlike the executive, unlike the legislature, and unlike the judiciary, which are established to administer their respective roles in a non-partisan manner and are constitutionally mandated, political parties by their very nature are at loggerheads and competition with each other. In fact, this political competition is at the very basis of what a democracy stands for. What is to stop a competitor under an assumed name from seeking information that could only seek to benefit one party over the other, but could also be used out of context to create fake news, or to proliferate something related to personal matter for candidates from the party? Side proposition has miserably failed to demonstrate any viable reason except the high moral ground which they seek to take to provide a logical and legal rationale for why the RTI, which is enacted with the intention to make the functioning of the governmental bodies transparent, should be applicable to political parties, which are several steps away from the governance and do not satisfy these conditions in a legal or constitutional sense.
I thank Shaunak for the speech. Now I'll call upon the next participant. We have Ashmit Singh.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. First, speaking for the motion, the three main arguments for the motion is transparency, political funding, and exceptions to the RTI. First, transparency. Under Section 29A of the Representation of People Act 1951, all parties must affirm their allegiance to the Constitution of India. Therefore, political parties so registered must be considered public agencies and be required to furnish information to the public under the right of information, as it is a de facto fundamental right held to be a part of freedom of speech and expression under Article 19, Clause 1A of the Indian Constitution. These political parties, especially national parties, run on public donations and funding by the center, thus further implying their existence as public agencies and not autonomous bodies. This information is further required to allow for an informed decision by the people in electing their government. This transparency will also help parties by helping them avoid the spread of fake news and false allegations. Overall, transparency will help further democratic ideals by allowing people to make decisions on the basis of the action of the parties and not their promises or other factors. Second point, political funding. The funding to the political parties has been clouded for a very long time and the information restricted from the people. This funding needs to be public knowledge and transparent to ensure that parties do not use suspicious or unethical means of collecting donations. It is also required to ensure that political funding is not subverting national security and integrity by allowing influence of international organizations or big businesses, and if it is, then that information must be made public. For example, there have been several allegations against the BJP that it has handed several defense projects to Adani Group following further allegations of heavy covert funding by the Adani Group to the BJP. Third point, the existing RTI exceptions. The opposition might argue that public information about the political parties can hamper national security or public order, but such information is already restricted. The right to information is not absolute and offers certain restrictions under Section 8 of the RTI Act, which ensure that information not suitable for public or national interest is withheld. For example, the actions of political parties that ruled in the past, such as Congress, will not come under the RTI if it could go against national interest. Thus, it is essential for the House to bring political parties under the ambit of the RTI to promote democratic ideas and protect the right of information. Now, speaking against the motion, the three main arguments against the motion is the ill effects of transparency, political funding, and the right to privacy of people. The ill ill effects of transparency, while the proposition argued that the restrictions of RTA will prevent release of information that can be detrimental to public order or national interest, this information can be indirectly obtained in manners where their possible effects won't be evident. For example, it can lead to downgrading of international relations as well. The information about meetings such as Rahul Gandhi's meeting with the Chinese ambassador close to the Doklam crisis could easily be sought under the RTI and be manipulated to worsen ties of the Indian government with anti-China countries if the Congress party comes back to power. It can also lead to public disorder and influence the electoral process by destabilizing parties through manipulation of information released under this act to support false allegations by opposition parties. Now, secondly, political funding. Support by individuals and their businesses to parties will be limited by transparency of political funding and thus create a demand-supply gap between the financial requirements of the parties, forcing them to further delve into unethical means of funding. It will also increase the threat of vendetta against individuals and entities that fund a particular political party by the opposition party or its supporters, thus creating public unrest. For example, Reliance has been continuously targeted by anti-BJP leaders and followers due to its alleged close ties with BJP. This led to attack on Jio phone towers in Punjab and the bomb threat near Antilia. The effect of transparently presenting the political funding of such parties could further help lead to such actions against other businesses and individuals supporting any political party. The third point, the right to privacy of political individuals. Political parties are not separate entities, but instead a group of individuals. These individuals often have very close ties to the political party, which will put their personal information at risk while seeking information about the political party and thus also violate their right to life and liberty. For example, the Gandhi family is synonymous with Congress leadership, and any attempt to seek information about the actions of Congress, especially in the past, could put their personal information at risk. Therefore, political parties need to be exempted from the RTI to ensure the smooth functioning of the electoral process and to protect national interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashmit. Now we have Shireen Peter.
Starting 3, 2, 1. Members of the House has established that RTI holds an axiomatic importance over other rights. A citizen's political role depends on their stance in government policies. It's vital for us to be aware of the government's regimes, which is already difficult, considering how India has been ranking extremely low in World Press Freedom reports. Information in Indian media is so tampered with bipartisan bias and propaganda, it becomes more crucial that RTI equips a citizen to seek information to make the right voting decision, especially considering how more and more people opt for Nota each year and India's voting turnout is still abysmal. Hypothetically, if I were to support a party, it should be implied that I have substantiate evidence to their every development related claim. Even cultural events can be perceived starkly different if equipped with RTI. If there is information regarding historical events and leaders that can favor our perception of them, then that information should be given. With the information procured by RTI, we can print our beliefs on newspapers or vote on the basis of it or peacefully assemble as a mass gathering. Hence, that proves that RTI indirectly controls our exercise over freedom of speech, right to vote, assemble, and against exploitation. I side with proposition as a hindrance to RTI is by proxy a hindrance to other fundamental rights. Moving on to the side of opposition, yes, parties are not 100% under the ambit of RTI, but this boundary is still unclear. Party figures still get questioned by RTI with due course action followed. But ignoring that, even if we did end up placing parties under the RTI, there is a dichotomy that exists. RTI and right to privacy contradict one another. In discussing how the people of India hold sovereignty over the country, we negate that the government, even though is answerable to us because they are in charge of our resources, are also just as much entitled to the same rights that we are. Under RTI, a plethora of confidential health, religious, financial, family, military, and even international information can be obtained. The RTI is already generous in how much information it doesn't explicitly exclude from the public. But even so, citizens can easily misuse and misconstrue sensitive information regarding government officials that may have zero correlation to government activities. This can have a serious domino effect of bad implications. Media houses can fabricate narratives if they get hold of sensitive information, which they already do. Internationally, this would make our country vulnerable and unnecessarily easy to criticize. With our data being so accessible, we are owed transparency, but without a concrete framework of information that should be excluded. Parties coming under the ambit of RTI would place sovereignty in the hands of Indian people, but not without compromising on the government's privacy. Moreover, it would over-sensationalize and mishandle confidential data to the point that it would have had far lesser adverse effects for it to not have been disclosed in the first place at all. Closing this debate, I am proud to have been in the side of opposition.
Thank you, Shireen. Next up, we have Gurmehar Bedi.
I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. In a world where political parties are shrouded in corruption, hidden in deceit, and cloaked in dishonesty, side proposition strongly feels that political parties should come under the ambit of the Right to Information Act. Why? We give you 3 reasons for this. Firstly, we think that on a principle level, because political parties are given financial and political power by the people, these very people then deserve to know the internal workings of the political party. But secondly, on a practical level, we think that political parties will be able to reduce the amount of corruption they indulge in because of this act, since it allows for more transparency and it allows for more accountability in the political process. Thirdly, we think that people will be able to better understand the political leaders, the political parties which they choose to align with, and therefore make more informed decisions. We also tell you that in 2010, political parties received up to rupees 700 crores in donations, out of which 95% was from completely unknown sources. Whether these sources were legitimate or no, we will never know, because this act was not implemented towards political parties back then and even to this day. The impacts of implementing this act are threefold. Firstly, people will be able to make better and informed decisions, which will allow them to express their right to vote in a far more meaningful manner than status quo. Secondly, we think that with corruption levels reducing, more development will be able to take place in the fields of education, healthcare, and the overall human rights situation in a country. But thirdly, we'll be able to uphold democracy and maintain the will of the people. And that is solely why we support the implementation of this act. On the other hand, as opposition, we feel that the right to privacy is far more crucial than the right to information, since the right to privacy is the hallmark of democracy. Therefore, countless nations like the US, UK, France, Germany, Brazil, Canada have all enshrined the right to privacy for countless years. We don't think that political parties should be subject to this act for 3 very simple reasons. Firstly, on a principle level, much like the individual citizens in a nation, as long as a political party follows the rules in a nation and abides by its laws, it should be given the same rights as individual citizens. It should be given the same amount of privacy as you give to individual citizens, because the political party has not been set up by the parliament or by the constitution. It deserves the same rights as the individual citizens. Secondly, we think that false accusations and immense pressure on political parties through filing RTIs in courts is something which we don't stand for, because it leads to instability in not just in the political landscape, but also it has a ripple effect in other areas like the economic stability of a nation. But most importantly, we think that smaller parties will be detrimentally impacted by the implementation of this act. Why? We think that larger parties like the BJP, which received 5 times the amount of donations last year than the second largest party in the country, the INC, will be able to use their technical know-how to circumvent these laws, be able to use their knowledge to take advantage of the loopholes, and therefore we'll never be able to see new political leaders come into the political landscape, and our political landscape will be dominated by the same political dynasties for the decades to come. We strongly oppose that. Thank you very much.
I thank Gulmeher for the speech. Next up is Divit Chopra.
I'll start in 3, 2, 1. The Right to Information Act is an integral component of Indian democracy and a measure of accountability, which is why political parties should be brought under its ambit. My argument will be structured in 2 parts. Firstly, that the right to be informed is a right flowing from the freedom of speech and expression. Why? Public expression is based on information present with the public about public entities. Secondly, primary public entities in a democracy are political parties. Thus, transparency regarding functioning of political parties is paramount to the freedom of speech and expression. This is enshrined in the Union of India versus the Association for Democratic Reforms case, in which the Supreme Court expanded the ambit of the RTI Act to politicians contesting in elections. Since this judgment, the release of criminal antecedents, educational qualifications, and assets has become mandatory under the Representative of People Act. Secondly, the role played by parties in the democratic setup and the nature of duties performed by them points towards their public character, hence bringing them within the ambit of Section 2H of the RTI Act. This is enshrined in the landmark judgment by the CIC in the Subhash Chandra Agarwal versus INC, BJP, CPI, CPIM, NCP, and BSP case. The Supreme Court designated that political parties are the CIC designated that political parties are public authorities and therefore fall under the purview of the RTI Act. The Supreme Court even directed parties to have chief public information officers to handle RTI requests. Now I'll be speaking in the opposition. Political parties should not be brought under the RTI Act due to their nature, existing legislation, and the intention/purpose of the RTI Act. My argument will be divided into 3 parts. Firstly, the right to confidentiality. Section 81J of the RTI Act pertains to restriction on the disclosure of personal information which has no relationship to any public activity or interest, or which would cause unwarranted invasion of privacy of the individual. Furthermore, Section 11 pertains to restrictions on the disclosure of personal information which relates to or has been supplied by a third party and has been treated as confidential by that third party, in this case being the political party. These provisions also act to harmonize one's right to information with need for personal privacy, confidentiality of information, and effective governance. Secondly, public interest. The RTI Act is centered on public interest, and there is a major difference between public interest and interest of the public in information. The Supreme Court judgment in the Subhash Chandra Agarwal versus Supreme Court case stated that in the context of RTI Act Section 11 Part 1, reflection needs to be done upon the object and the purpose behind the right to information, the right to privacy, and consequences of invasion and breach of confidentiality with possible harm and injury that would be caused to the third party with reference to the particular information and the person, which links with the third point, which is ambiguity. With regards to public interest, the RTI doesn't specify factors to be taken into account while determining the same. Even the Supreme Court in the Subhash Chandra Agarwal versus SC case affirmed to this fact and admitted to the absence of such factors owing to the ambiguity of the law. All these point towards showing that the RTI, the political parties should not be brought under the RTI Act due to technical difficulties, ambiguity, and the unjust nature of the Act towards political parties. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Divit for the speech. Next up, we have Anmol Raman.
I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. 1975, the historic State of UP versus Raj Narayan case ruling included the right to know every public act under Article 19, Section A. 2020, CIC turned down the plea to make it mandatory for political parties to declare their source of funds. How we have regressed. In our democratic India, political parties ought to be accountable to the masses they serve and represent. Even the Indian Olympic Association is a public authority. Is a sports association more beholden to a country than the parties that rule it? Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an era of surveillance capitalism where political parties, in cahoots with big tech and industrial houses playing Chanakya, lay claim on the personal information of the citizens, but do not deign to supply any of their own, demanding for blind trust instead. 1/3 of the Lok Sabha MPs have faced criminal charges. 3/4 are corrupt multimillionaires. 68% of the funds for the infamously expensive 2014 election are not accounted for. And yet, data transparency is still under debate. Political parties wield influence. It is ludicrous to argue that transparency is important for all state organs, but not the parties which control these organs. Erasing information asymmetry is the first step towards creating accountability towards funding and functioning. It is, as Patrick Henry said, the liberties of a people never were, nor ever will be secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them. However, political parties formed under ROPA simply don't fit the RTI Act's definition of public authorities. From a supremely practical standpoint, nothing less than a change in law can bring parties under the RTI Act. And until that happens, proposing that we categorize political parties as public authorities is nothing short of disrespect towards the sacred laws of our country. Moreover, let's try to be a bit more humane. Political parties are not an institution, but an association of people, just like us. As long as they follow the election code of conduct, unconstitutionally violating their privacy is painfully reminiscent of Orwell's Big Brother. Should we start bringing all citizens under the ambit of RTI Act too? Now let us address the root of the issue. The main reason for people invoking the RTI Act is their desire to know the source of party funds. However, information about party funds already is in public domain in the form of income tax returns and contribution reports stipulated under the IT Act. Besides, India is a representative, not participative democracy, and the largest one at that. Flooding party offices with inquiries when relevant information about them already is on the Election Commission site will hamstring their functioning, reveal sensitive data, and create utter chaos. Barack Obama said it best. If people cannot trust their representatives to do the job for which they exist, then all else is lost. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Anmol for the speech. Next up, we have Ananya Mani.
We're starting in 3, 2, 1. Let's think about the kind of information that we get from political parties. Do we get raw facts, straight information? Or do we get an advertisement of exactly what we want to hear so that we will vote for them? Now let's understand why we need the RTI Act. The RTI Act of 2005 suggests that any citizen of our country can question a public authority, and that public authority is answerable to the citizen. This perfectly aligns with the values of democracy, because I, as a citizen, have chosen someone to represent me, and now that person is accountable for what happens in our country and answerable if something goes wrong. When it comes to political parties, these are the people who are going to represent the country. These are the people who are going to form the government. But yet the only information we get about them is the sugar-coated speech we receive at election rallies. In a democracy where people choose their leaders, it is our right to know everything about the person who's trying to represent our country. As a citizen, I want to know the credentials of my candidate. I want to know whether he is worthy of my vote. Let's talk funding. It's obvious that election rallies are not easy to fund. So this brings the question of where they procure their funding from. Is it through questionable means or maybe private-owned organizations in return for favors? This is where we need the RTI Act to apply in political parties. Because if we don't know these things, this is a breach of transparency. It is a breach of accountability. We cannot question if we do not know. And we cannot bring any positive change if we cannot question. But is this the only lens we can look at this from? Let's ask ourselves why we want the RTI Act to apply. The Right to Information Act should apply to everyone because we think we deserve to know everything about the person who is going to represent our country. Now, while a political party like BJP does consist of, say, the Prime Minister, it also has people like the Karamcharis, who are ordinary people like you and me. As the Prime Minister, you have made a conscious decision to represent the country. And this comes with a sense of accountability and responsibility. But these ordinary people, they haven't made that decision yet. So when we impose the RTI Act on them, this is a breach of their privacy. We also have to recognize that political parties are basically just teams fighting against each other to win elections. So the main goal of every political party is obviously to look better than the others. And so they will try to make other people look worse. And when all the information is out there, different parties can interpret and extrapolate this information to their advantage. Say if as a political party, my ideology is strongly based with development and I go and invest in a backward village. But that backward village has a certain majority of people are from a certain community. This can be used against to incite a certain level of contempt and play on national sentiments of people, deepening the religious and racial or whatever division that is present in our society, causing partisanship. Yes, as citizens, we have a right to information. But is this right to information at the cost of our national integrity? Is it at the cost of a peace and unity of our nation?
I'd like to thank Ananya for the speech. Now we have the last participant. We have Pratika Dev.
I'll be beginning in 3, 2, 1. Suppose the elections are in a few months. You are an active citizen of India. How can you and I learn about a political party? What can help us decide which party is eligible to form the government through this very RTI Act? Right to Information Act has been implemented by the Government of India to provide a right to its citizens to ask relevant questions to the government and various public utility service providers. RTI will provide transparency to the voters and it strengthens the very structure of a democracy. It brings public accountability. It helps citizens to vote with much more confidence. Matters regarding finance and administration need to be made available to the public. Political parties receive funds from the public. Even the expenditure which the political parties make during the election should be made public. 75% of the income of major parties come from unknown sources. Under the IT Act, parties do not have to disclose donations made below 20,000. In 2010, a study of 6 key parties showed that 95% of funds were raised by amounts below 20,000. In a case of the Common Cause versus the Union of India, it was said that political parties spend more than 1,000 crores of rupees on general elections, yet nobody and not a single citizen of India questions this source of money. Political parties claim to work for public good. They work for the public. They consist of the public. Then why are they not considered as a public authority? Why are they not under the purview of the RTI? In 2019, the Supreme Court had even issued a notice to the Center and the Election Commission on an application seeking political parties to be declared under public authorities. Unless and until public parties are held accountable, how can we expect a democracy to succeed? On the other hand, political parties are formed under an act of the parliament, which is the Representation of People Act, which is not the same as being created by the parliament. Political parties are independent bodies. Declaring a political party as a public authority under the RTI Act would hamper its smooth internal working. In 2015, the government had told the Supreme Court that political parties should not be brought under the ambit of Right to Information Act by terming them as public authorities, as it would not only hamper the working, but will also help their political rivals to file pleas with malicious intention. There is no guarantee that an opposing party will not issue several RTAs against a party. Since by law, political parties are not directly connected to the public, such an RTI will be invalid. It will continue to hinder the progress of the party. Opposition parties will continuously issue RTIs. This will just go against the interest of welfare of our democratic nation. It will lead to a lot of unnecessary paperwork and ultimately red tapeism. A citizen can learn about their respective political party or a certain political party without employing RTI. A party conducts campaigns, spreads information, holds rallies, speeches, the party's website, the election commission sources. Under Section 80 GGB, it is necessary that companies who donate to political parties can only do so through check, demand draft, electronic transfer, not cash. They are required to keep a documentary record of the same. The Election Commission and the Income Tax Act have necessary provisions to bring about transparency about the financial aspects of a political party. So no, political parties should not be brought under the ambit of the RTI. Thank you.
I thank the speaker for that speech. With this, we come to the end of the senior grand finals of the inaugural edition of Crossfire.